Welcome to Tantra Lounge, Sex Talk Radio. Divine Kika is a radiant force, overflowing with positive energy, guiding you to a heart-opening, blissful, authentic tantric experience. This show will help you to expand your joy, cultivate more intimacy in your life, and rediscover the pleasure within your personal relationship. Dive in and discover untapped intimacy and true joy for yourself or with your beloved. Bring back the harmony and happiness that you long for. Let's begin an unforgettable journey that will leave an imprint on your heart and soul forever. Welcome to Tantra Lounge, Sex Talk Radio. Here's your host, Divine Kika.
Welcome to another edition of the Tantra Lounge. My name is Greg, and I'm here with the host of the show, the wonderful, the lovely Divine Kika. How are you, darling?
I'm wonderful.
It is good to be back with you. Although I will only be here for a short time tonight because we have a super special guest on the show. And whenever there's a super special guest on the show, I get shoved out of the picture very quickly. Rightfully so, because I think our guest today has a lot to offer.
Yeah, he's awesome.
Lawrence Lanoff. Is that all right?
Yeah.
Do you call him Larry or is it Lawrence?
Lawrence, and he's a fantastic friend, and he's an amazing teacher, and he's one of those people that really is out there with radical ideas to change the world.
Yeah,
doing this beautiful work.
I was looking into his
That's
bio.
what this show is about.
It is.
To change your life, to bring tools to make your life better every day. To break through.
What's that? To bring true?
To break through these old patterns, these old systems that we have in our head, these old ways that we think things should be, and learn a new way.
This gentleman, who will be joining us in a bit, he's an award-winning sex educator. He teaches the art of radical self-acceptance around the world, and he leads people into new paradigms of expanded freedom and pleasure while deprogramming them from the limitations of cultural repression and suppression. That's a little scope of what he talks about or what he does, but what are you going to discuss with Lawrence today?
Human sexuality, what makes someone happy, what are the silly stuff that we hold back in our lives. Yeah.
And like, for example, how do you connect more deeply with your loved one? Things like that. But outside
what is
of
happiness?
the box.
What is really being happy? What does that mean? Do we need to be happy?
Where did he come from? How did you find Lawrence?
Where did he come from? I think he come from Mars. Because I went to his class and there's like this vortex of energy, and he said, I am like a vortex of energy. I'm like, yeah. And then I went to the class and I could feel there was an energetic vibration that he sends, that we could feel and vibrate at the same level that he vibrates, which is very high because he was in Sedona. I don't like to seem like this woo-woo person that, oh my God, the vortex of energy, I'm so deranging. I'm far from that. You guys know that I'm like a person that likes to see things as they are, and I like the reality of things. But there is an energy and a vibration that this man brings, and which is such a beautiful awareness, and that you can see it when you see him and look at his eyes. There's something really special there. Somebody that knows something deep, and he's been studying Tantra since he was 12 years old. Yeah,
anybody who's been studying any kind of subject for that long becomes an expert, just because time and the amount of energy that someone puts into something. Even you. I mean, I would say the same thing. I learned so much from you just because you put so much time in your life back into what you do and what you're passionate about.
Yeah.
And it comes through in what you talk. You don't sound like somebody who's just saying it and like BSing, if you will. I think you truly sound like you know what you're talking about. And I think we'll sense a lot of the same with Lawrence Lanoff, who will be joining us in a few moments. And anything else you want to add before we bring him along?
He's awesome. I really invite you to embark in this journey of learning what is it when you're closed and we're shut down, what to do. What is it really being happy? Do we need to be happy? Is that true? And what is really the energetics of sexuality are the things that we're going to talk about today, which are points that really can change your life if you're really in tune with those things.
Yes. And I think just looking at the outline of some of what you are talking about today and what you're going to be bringing up with Lawrence, I said Larry, what you're going to be bringing up with Lawrence, I think will be super important for the average person who's listening to the show in their growth.
That goes with what we are doing here. We are helping you to create a life of love, power, and freedom where you're fully expressed
Yes.
And you can create fantastic relationships. That's our goal here with the show.
Very excited. Coming up in moments.
That's one thing. This is episode 20.
Oh, it is?
Yeah, and next week we're going to start a whole new series.
This is the 20th. I feel like we've done more than 20 shows.
I know,
been 20,
this is 20 shows.
Well, that is a pretty good amount of time. That is 5 months.
Yeah.
So, okay.
So more to come.
More to come. And next we have Lawrence Lanoff coming in, award-winning sex educator. The art of radical self-acceptance is his trademark. So he has some knowledge, I'm sure. And he'll be joining us next here on the Tantra Lounge.
We all know the physical aspects of sex, but we rarely hear of the spiritual side. 10 Tantric Sex Secrets for Greater Sex, Love, and Intimacy Tonight by Divine Kika will bring you extraordinary bliss. This titillating and easy-to-read book will transform your ordinary sex life to breathtaking, amazing, powerful. Great for beginners, let this book be your first step to a happier love life. 10 Tantric Sex Secrets for Greater Sex, Love, and Intimacy Tonight. Available in hard copy, ebook, and audio format at divinekika.com. That's divine, Kika.com.
I'm real excited about your new book, 10 Tantric Sex Secrets. And it's really beautiful that you came out with this, and so I'm hoping that everybody can find it and read what she's written here and take a great start to your own tantric journey and take a look at this sweet book. It's a great little pamphlet. It's easy to read, and Kika's just wonderful.
This is Tantra Lounge, Sex Talk Radio, and I am Divine Kika, your host. And today I have a special guest. His name is Lawrence. And Lawrence Lanoff. Did I say it right, Lawrence?
Yes, that's good. It's good. As long as we're in the neighborhood, it's all good.
So I went to a meditation of yours, like at the last year in April, and I felt my whole body spinning. Just your energy is so big. You bring like these huge vortexes of energy. You're such an amazing human being. I'm so grateful to be here with you today. Welcome to Tantra Lounge.
Well, thank you. Good to be here. Really good to be here. Yeah, that was, April was quite an event.
That was, yeah. You touched me very deeply with your energy, I can say that.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I just think it's really important because, a lot of people have experiences with Tantra and meditation and all kinds of things, but they really don't get those reference points inside. And so I try to create experiences for people where they can have a reference point and actually feel something. And then, I find that just, at the end of the day, that makes a big difference. In that same way, like that you get touched in some way and it's like, oh, okay, well now this Tantra stuff is starting to make sense,
Yeah. So how did you get into Tantra? What brought you in?
Well, it's a complicated story, but I'll give you the simple version, which is that I was growing up in New York City, and I was growing up at a really wild time in the city. Mm-hmm. And what was the issue with growing up at that kind of time was that there was a lot of confusion. Mm-hmm. So there were lots of like, there were gangs, broken streets, and it was really a wild time. Crack was just kind of really starting to take off, and I felt like in a way I had this crossroads in my life, which is basically kind of stay on the streets and be dead. Like I can guarantee you, had I not discovered Tantra and meditation and my spirit, quote unquote, my spiritual path, if I hadn't found those things, there's no question I would not be alive.
Wow.
So, and I have lots of evidence of that. Like I have lots of friends who did not come out of the neighborhood, that did not survive all of that. And so it was kind of a crazy background. And I think in trying to find peace in all of that, and being kind of really hungry, like, well, why is everything the way it is? Why is there such chaos? I'm kind of a why person in terms of asking lots of why questions. And then I met this guy, oddly enough, through my mom, who she was just blown away by her experiences with him, and she basically said, whatever that, whatever he's doing, I want you to learn, because I think it's really important. And apparently, like in her life up until that point, she'd never met anybody like that guy, and it kind of blew her mind. Yeah. So her perspective was, as a woman and this, a single woman raising a young boy, she's like, I don't want to have a boy who does not understand women, and who does not understand how to have sex with women, how to connect, how to do all that stuff. So that's kind of how I got started.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. I've been watching your videos, and you're quite a revolutionary with everything that you're doing, the things you talk about. Like, it's really, for a lot of people, it's like, oh, really? Really?
I know.
You're doing, so I love that you're bringing, when I ask you, what are you going to bring to my listeners? You said, I'm going to bring them clarity.
Yes.
And then when you have clarity in your life, everything flows, because you're clear. And
yeah, exactly. I mean, clarity is, I hesitate a little bit using that word, in the sense that it's been taken over by various cults. So, for example, like Scientology uses, and yes, I did say the cult of Scientology uses, they use these tactics and use words like clear, and of course, like, so I'm really, like, that's not how I'm using the word, just to clarify. I'm using it more like this. Like, I heard a perfect example today. One of my students was telling me the story about her running around with a bag on her head. And she was a little kid, and she put a bag on her head, and she was running around and just ran smack dab into a pole and knocked herself unconscious. And that, when I'm speaking of clarity, I'm speaking of the opposite of whatever that is. Right? So, like, we tend to walk around with bags over our heads, running into poles, and wondering why.
Why is it not working?
Why does this keep happening? Why am I creating it? Blah, blah, blah. And so when I'm speaking of clarity, I'm basically saying, take the bag of culture and the bag of belief systems and the bag of all the bullshit that you've been taught, take that bag off your head and see clearly, not in a moralistic sense, but just in the sense of, like, oh, there's a pole in front of me, and I can go around the pole instead of running into it until my head is bloody. So I just want to make that little distinction, because
Thank
it's
you.
important.
That was brilliant. Yeah. So what is enlightenment?
What is enlightenment? Okay, well, and there, in my opinion, and who am I? I'm nobody, right? So who cares? Like, so if you want to...
Oh, you are awesome.
Whatever. I'm just saying, like, so if somebody's like, oh, no, don't bust that bubble, just put your fingers in your ears right now and go, la, 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 I am not listening. To me, there are 3 stages of awakening. And the first, well, I mean, there were probably 1,000, but the first one that I personally was striving to, and the reason I bring this up right now is because there's lots of people out there who are spending a lot of energy trying to attain this state, right? So for me, this was a process of, waking up, and I had a very specific experience, and that experience lasted about 3 months, like the intensity of that experience. And so enlightenment in that sense is kind of what you would read about in books, where, the Zen koans say, chop wood, carry water, just all that stuff. What is the sound of one hand clapping? In essentially the way most people describe it, it's kind of like a unitive state, kind of a state of one with everything. And then there's this additional stage, which is this stage of realizing that that's not all there is, And that's kind of what I call the stage of like reality. And so there's kind of like, so there's like this initial experience of enlightenment, then there's this kind of like dealing with the reality, and like whatever that is, like with just the reality. And I call that, personally, I call that the reality of reality, which is my podcast. And then
the reality of reality. Okay, tell me more about that. What does that mean to you?
It's like realizing that not everything, not all the stories you've been told are true. So even the story of enlightenment is still a story. It's a true experience, but it's still covered in mythology.
Hi, I'm Divine Kika. I'm here to invite you to my new radio show, this and every Saturday at midnight, to inspire you to create loving, happy, fulfilling relationships in your life and have the best sex ever. I'll teach you tantric sex secrets never known before to spice your life and to give you greater joy. Join me this and every Saturday at midnight. Divine Kika Tantra Lounge, Sex Talk Radio. For more information, go to divinekika.com. You are making a point about reality.
Right. So the reality of reality, I feel, is like when you move beyond mythology and you just start to deal with reality. So in other words, you have, let's say here's one that I know you and I both deal with, which is that the secret to life is to get married, get a house, get 1.94 kids and 1.74 pets, and white picket fence, and have a baby, do that whole thing, and then head towards the exit till death do us part, right? And that will make you happy.
I said you got the house, the dog, and the kid, and then what?
Right. So these are stories where, let's call that the metaphor of enlightenment. And like relationship enlightenment would be, I met the other half of me, I met my partner, we got married, we had kids, we lived the life, and I'm sexually frustrated, I am relationship frustrated, I'm miserable, and worse off, I think I'm the only one. Right?
We see that all the time, everywhere.
All the time, right? Yeah. And so nobody, because there's like basically 6.5 billion people that believe that particular Santa Claus story, what happens is that everybody thinks, oh my God, the story can't possibly be wrong. It must be me. Right. So that takes us to stage 3, which is, so the reality of reality is, okay, I got married, I did the thing. Stage 2 would be, holy shit, it's not what I thought it was going to be. Now I have to deal with reality. And then stage 3 is kind of awakening into clarity, which is, it's not a moral issue, it's not a moral discussion, it's just I'm seeing things clearly. It's just, oh, okay, so I did that. I'm still sexually frustrated. I've got this problem. We don't communicate, whatever. So then the third stage is just seeing clearly, and part of seeing clearly would be realizing maybe the story is the problem.
I like it. I like the way you put it. So, love it. What is narcissism and how that can affect your life?
So narcissism is a really interesting one. So narcissism is something that is like a cognitive bias that we have. And again, these are things that you and I would deal with in a
profession,
regular basis, which is either, I would say to be human is to be a narcissist, but then there's like a idea of narcissism. So the first thing to understand is that we're not the center of the universe. And so the sooner you can realize that just as a human, because it's kind of a cognitive bias. It's a mistake it's an error in our perception that we are the center of the universe, because we're not. So I just feel like narcissism is one of those really high leverage tools where when you start to understand how that impacts how we interact, let's say how you interact with a lover or a partner or a, when you can realize like, oh, I'm not the center of the universe, and maybe I don't have all the answers, and maybe the way I think the toilet paper should face, maybe that's not the only way there is. People break up about this stuff.
This is a great way to put it, because it was the center of the problem. It's like, if I'm not the center of the universe, then your way might be great, his way might be great, the other way might be great.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be my way.
Well, exactly. I mean, I feel like that's one of the core secrets. You kind of asked me practical things, and I think like a core secret of relationship is realizing that you don't have all the answers. Not only that you get things wrong. So like, I don't really fight in my relationships, because it's like, I get things wrong. Other people get things wrong. Maybe I'm wrong. You know what I mean? Like, so it's not like, what are we fighting about? I mean, I've been like dead certain, no, I've got this. I know it. I'm quoting this. I feel it. I believe it, blah, blah, blah. And guess what? I'm wrong. So I think that's part of realizing that we're not the center of the universe, and we get things wrong. We make mistakes. We make errors all the time. So the kind of the key to relationship success is really having that as a framework that,
That takes a lot of self-awareness to be able to see that when you're wrong, and when you're perceived wrong. And
that's
even
right.
if you don't feel you're wrong, okay, I've been perceived wrong, so I need to look at it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, awesome. What is Tantra for you? How long have you been teaching Tantra?
Oh, man. I mean, a long time. Can we just go with that?
It's a secret. Okay.
I mean, basically, I started teaching it as soon as I learned it. I'm kind of that kind of human, which I suppose is a bad thing in some ways, because just in case my buddy Aaron is listening to this, if he happens to be listening to this podcast, Aaron, I'm really sorry, man. I'm really, really sorry. Because like, I started teaching seriously. Like, I was 12 when I started learning.
12?
And, that's when I met that Tantra master I was telling you about in New York City.
What a gift.
Yeah, it was amazing. And then I started teaching all my little friends. But, oh, man, I am so sure they are in therapy and so traumatized because of that. Yeah, I'm sorry.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
You're so funny. Oh my God. So what is Tantra for you? For so many years of experiencing and living a tantric life and really sharing this wisdom, what does that mean to you? What is Tantra for you?
I mean, I've got to keep it really simple. For me, it's really about kind of like living in full sexual self-expression and full, when I say full, I don't mean, I'm not like, I live in full, I'm just totally, no, like, whatever.
You're not that trippy guy. You're conscious, I know.
See clearly, right? I'm just saying like in other words, that you're living in full sexual self-expression. In other words, like, look, if you have a foot fetish, it's okay, you're normal, whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like it doesn't matter what you're into. I had a female student quote unquote confess something to me, and it just makes me smile, because it's like she's acting like it's like something abnormal, and I'm like, it's so normal, like whatever. I'm not gonna, just out of respect, I'm not gonna say, but I mean, it's like okay, and this is a headset, big deal. But a lot of people are really intimidated by that and afraid of that. So for me, I think it's really realizing that we can live in a sex positive framework, that you really can, without being too esoteric. I really feel like we can create lives that we want to live. You know, and I don't mean it in like some narcissistic sense. I mean, like in reality, like you can have adult conversations with people, and you can say, hey, I as an adult want to be kind of living my life more in this way, and would you like to come play with me in this way? You know, and
everybody's happy.
It's surprising. What's that?
Then everybody's happy that way.
Yeah, and it's surprising how many people are cool with that. Like I really feel like we can really live in our fully expressed selves, and you know, it's like if you're okay with it, people will be okay with it.
It's about giving yourself permission, isn't it? If you give permission, then if you're free and if you don't have any negative stories around it, then you're perceived as such, and everybody feels that energy and they're with you on that.
Right. I think you've got it. I think it's all about kind of how you've managed shame. Right. And if you've managed it well, you know, and some people have it managed super well in one area and not in another. But I feel like that's really the tool. Shame is the inherent, that's kind of like our inheritance as humans. Like shame is the cultural, and it's like the mechanism that allows us to be controlled and to be kind of kept in line.
Welcome to Tantra Lounge.
Sex Talk Radio.
Divine Kika is a radiant force, overflowing with positive energy, guiding you to a heart-opening, blissful, authentic, tantric experience. This show will help you to expand your joy, cultivate more intimacy in your life, and rediscover the pleasure within your personal relationships. A lot of people have questions out there about Tantra. I think there's a lot of misconceptions, would you say? Some misunderstandings about what it's all about?
Yeah. When I say I'm a Tantra teacher, people look at me like I wish I could show you their faces. They have these big eyes and like a little, you know, and excitement. It's like a little bit of fear and a little bit of nervous, and they look with these big eyes and a big smile because a big part of them is really curious about what it is.
Of course.
But then there is a little bit fear. So it all means excitement.
I think so. It's a stimulating topic.
Tantra is a path like Zen or yoga that uses sexuality as a door to awareness.
That's right.
And then Tantra is also choosing with awareness what brings us joy. Now, if we're expanding that, like what is really be conscious enough, knowing oneself enough, knowing your surroundings, knowing what your deepest desires, fears, emotions, and send that into how can I bring more joy into my life? And from that joy, expand throughout all those around me.
Absolutely. You know, I think that when it comes to Tantra and sex, it's such a hot topic. Of course, people are interested in it. Of course, they want to hear about it. They want to talk about it. But really, it's just scratching the surface of it. Although sexuality is very much embraced in Tantra, it is really not the primary focus or point.
Since you were talking about that, what is radical self-acceptance then? Like, how do I practice that?
Well, radical self-acceptance is the process of, it's like saying to yourself, whatever it is that I want is certainly okay in my mind. Right? It doesn't matter whatever you're into in the entire, it doesn't matter how, you know, I mean, because in your mind, it's all good. So that's the first step. Mm-hmm. And then the second step is like, of those things that are in my mind, what things can I share with in real life with another human being that would be really fun and cool and positive? So I feel like radical self-acceptance is just this perspective of saying pretty much anything goes in my mind, and then as long as I can have adult conversations with other people about things that are really important to me, that if I can accept those within myself first, then it's like the world will accept it. But if you can't accept it, then the world is back. It's just how it is.
So what helps people to like, what in your theory, like what is the secret of being happy and living a happy, fulfilled life?
Well, I think the first thing is to realize that happiness is bullshit. So,
Okay, wait. Happiness doesn't exist?
well, it exists, but it's but happiness is an emotion, and emotions are really short-term things, you know. And I think people get really stressed out because they're trying to be happy, right? Because of this sort of very twisted image. I see this a lot with like super religious people. So they'll be in a specific religion or a cult, you know, and there's lots of cults. I mean, you could go into the cult of Lululemon, for example, you know, and everybody's like, hi. And so there's this like, you know, there's like this, like, happy, right? And it's kind of like, and so the thing is that there's really these micro expressions that you can't hide, these micro expressions which are really revealing what your unconscious is dealing with. So if you're a new age person, then there's a lot of stress for you to be happy because, you know, your thoughts, think good thoughts and be happy. And so there's like this kind of it's really like a what's the word I'm looking for? Like I can't quite remember the word, but there was this sense of like policing of thoughts and policing of attitude and policing of happiness and so you know, people are like, oh, you know, no, you know, so what happens is it puts a lot of pressure on people to quote unquote be happy. And so what ends up happening is that there's always a disparity, a separation between the facade of happiness and then what's really going on, because nobody is, you know, we're complicated, man. Happiness would be like trying to drive your car with the gas pedal always at full throttle. It just, it's not possible. But you get that with a car, but you don't get that with your emotions. Like if you're just happy, right? How are you going to have a conversation with that person? How are you going to connect with them? And so there's actually legions of people who are living in this kind of happiness delusion. And a lot of this comes from, you know, sort of the turn of the last century. So the last century, there was a lot of stuff about positive mental attitude and all this stuff. And these things help us, but they can also become these really abusive tools that we can throw on each other. So the secret to happiness is not being happy. The secret to happiness is kind of finding a sense of well-being. And well-being is something that happens when you feel open to life. So if I'm happy, I'm not open to life because there are some shitty things in the world, right? And so if I'm happy, I have to like literally go like, oh, well, I'm not going to look at that. But then that kind of makes you kind of a dick. Because
we are on radio.
What's that?
We are on radio. It's okay.
Oh. Am I not? We're like radio.
So it makes us like bad. Like not so good.
Okay.
We'll edit it. It's okay.
Good. Okay, good. Well, you bleep me out. I grew up on the streets of New York, man. I have no excuse.
That's good. It's good.
That's how we do it.
That's good.
So
I love it. I love the whole point of that. I'm not obligated. I feel like you just gave me permission to not be happy sometimes, to be mad, to be upset. You know, sometimes because I'm a teacher, the people around me in my life, if I say, you know, this thing is really not working, I'm a little bit frustrated with then people look at me like, but you are upset about something? Like I'm obligated to be happy all the time and have everything working perfectly in my life. And no, it's just the way I probably deal with things a little bit different. But I still get upset. I'm still going to feel my emotions fully, maybe even more, because I'm willing to feel them deeply and process what is. And I think a lot of people forget that. And then you made a great point about it's okay to not be happy.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's you know, like, I mean, that's why I say it's kind of like there is an entire community, like I feel like I almost call it like the country of San Diego is like, you know, it's like the cult of happiness. It's just like, hi, but yet the micro expressions reveal that that's not what's really going on. So then there's a lot of frustration and all that stuff, and then it comes out in weird ways, rather than just being like, look, I'm not interested in being happy. I'm not even interested in being happy all the time, but I am interested in being open and having a sense of well-being. And I feel like really that's happiness is not something you achieve, but happiness is a byproduct, because you've got the stuff in your head organized in such a way that you don't have a bag over your head and you're not running into a pole all the time. So you can't be happy when you're doing that. It's just not possible. So happiness is really something that happens when you see life clearly.
Love it.
Yeah.
Love it. It's so perfect what you just said. I loved one video of you that you said the opposite of being open is open, being closed is being open, or something like that. I don't remember the title, but it's like about what do you do when you're stuck and life doesn't feel good. Can you talk a little bit about that? I thought it was such one of your best videos.
Well, thank you. So so it's actually one of my, I mean, I do
spend time being contracted, and when we're contracted, sometimes I force myself to open, and it's like that space, it's like everything hurting, and then nobody looks good at that moment.
No,
everything doesn't feel good because I am contracted. I'm aware. I'm like, wow, I'm so contracted. I'm not even smiling at the little kids at school as I drop my son or something. It's like, whoa, I am contracted. Realizing that is a big deal, but choosing to get off it, it's hard for most people. I'm always choosing to get off it. Like, how quickly can I come back to love, right?
Well, right. So I'm going to say a couple things that you're not going to like, but I'm sorry. So
Go for it.
The first one is that when the contracted state is something you've been taught. Okay. You've been taught to be afraid of the world. You've been taught as a female to be really contracted around your sexuality, around your body. Right. And this is part of Tantra, is realizing like, whoa, I don't need to be so contracted around this stuff. Right. But the challenge is we're taught to be like this, you know, and I call it mammal blocking. Like we block our breasts and we block our genitals and we cross our legs and all of this stuff. A lot of this stuff is cultural programming. It's just, we're really deeply programmed to be afraid of strangers. And we're not, we don't really, like, evolution didn't really prepare us to just be living right on top of one another like we do. We were really come from these little small tribes, and so it made sense to be afraid of strangers, and it made sense to be careful because, I mean, literally a group of strangers could come in and wipe you out. So, but we don't live in that world anymore, right? So what we've had to do is create a bunch of rules and laws. And that's the essence of religion, is just gives us lots of cultural rules and laws and mythologies so that we don't kill each other and we don't have, sex with our, other people and do the things that we're not supposed to do, depending on what culture you live in.
I grew up in Brazil, and it's like everything is wild and open and free in there. So I'm a little bit different.
yeah, but you still have those Catholic roots.
Which I broke through a lot of that, but yeah, they hunt me from time to time.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So I've even seen that, it's not uncommon, like even in Hollywood, or, which is like, or let's say the Valley, which is like porn central, where people are just like, whoa, yes, I have sex and this is my job and this is what I do, right? But the reality is there's all this contraction around it because there's a lot of self-judgment and shame, and of course cultural shame. On one hand, you know, people are like, oh, you're a porn star, and then other people are like, oh my God, you're a porn star, you know. So there's all this there, on one hand, yes, I've been to Brazil. I love Brazil. I feel like Brazil is in touch with the reality of sexuality.
Yes.
Right.
Like people are not ashamed to be sensual, to be free, and to kiss. We kiss a lot more. I think we have more sex there too.
Oh, I would almost guarantee it. Not necessarily with your partner, but definitely. So that
with everybody.
I feel like that's the, you know.
I've been here 15 years, so.
That's right. So the key piece here is to just realize that, you know, it's like coming to terms with the idea that we're culturally told to be closed one way or another. And we either hide that or we don't hide it so much, but basically you're closed. And then what happens is you have these moments of being open, but everybody knows when you're open, the other shoe's going to drop, bad's going to happen, blah, blah, blah. So we're just programmed to do this thing, open, close, open, close. And that is the essence of what I see women dealing with all the time.
Well, also, like, our emotions are attached to our hormones and everything else that's going on, right? It's not just one line. I choose to be open all the time, but sometimes, even if I want to be open, my heart feels tight. And I have to deal with whatever is in my heart and say my truth. And until I create the boundaries I need to, or make the clear requests I need to, or change something so I'm in alignment with what my soul is crying for. Because if that's that pain in my heart and I'm contracted, I'm not in alignment with something. I'm not living my purpose. My soul is screaming, saying, hey, something is wrong. Right? You got to get out of there. Something needs to change. And until that change happens, until I realize what exactly needs to, sometimes it's just sharing a conversation we'll do.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's what I love about language. I love using language to share things and talk things through and do what we're doing now, which is sharing ideas. So just to complete that thought, when you feel contraction, what I really like to do is kind of say, okay, well, let's just pretend at some point you're going to be open again. Yeah. Right. It will happen. So you can then come sort of say, okay, well, let's pretend that's, you know, an hour, 10 hours, 10 days, whatever it is. At some point you open up. From this point, this new point of openness, you then come and say, okay, I'm open. And instead of me saying the opposite of open is closed, which is what we've been taught, so we're doing a lot of this, the idea that I've been sharing with people, and I really think it's a beautiful idea, and it's one that I live, is just that the opposite of open is actually more open. That the opposite of open is actually more open. So that becomes your new field of reference. So if I'm open here, and then this is more open here, eventually this kind of becomes my natural way of being. Yeah. And so now this becomes kind of my new baseline. And so then I say, okay, well, cool. So now this is my new baseline. This represents open. So the opposite of this is actually even more open. And so it kind of gives us a different way to look at things instead of the continual open, closed, because you can't really ever, if you're stuck in that paradigm, there's really no way out.
Divine Kika is an international Tantra master, author, seminar leader, relationship and sex coach. She will teach you to master your sexuality and self-awareness so you can experience fulfillment and happy relationships while living a life of love, power, and passion. Achieve the love life you have always wanted and have the best sex ever. For life-changing relationship advice and great lovemaking tips, visit divinekika.com. That's divine, Kika.com.
So when the heart is tight, so when people feel their heart is tight and they're having a contraction, what is the practical suggestion that you have you suggest them to do? What is like one thing?
Yeah, the practical suggestion would be to feel that tightness in your body with your openness.
With the willingness to feel it.
Exactly. Yeah, and sometimes, now I am a human, so I understand sometimes we don't even want to feel the willingness to feel it, but at some point you will.
Yes. Oh yeah.
And at that point you just, instead of going like, oh, I was so closed and let me beat myself up, let me just say, yeah, that's what was, and now here's my new open, and we're going to go more open. And then as that opens more, we're going to do more open, and then as that opens more and more open, because that's a really fulfilling direction to go. Like openness and quality of life just go hand in hand.
Beautiful. Yeah. So what is the secret of being happy?
Man, the secret of being happy, I think, is realizing there's no happiness. Like,
okay.
That's a mythology. Right?
Got it.
And so there's no place to get to. That's really the key. And we live as though there is a place. Like we'll get to the mountaintop one day and suddenly I'll be permanently happy. No, the only time you'll be permanently happy is when you cease to exist. Because that's the only time when nothing else will be bothering you. You know, life is
awesome.
Yeah.
So what is energetic sexuality for you?
Energetic sexuality is, most people deal with sex as point A inside of slot B. That's how most people perceive sex. And so there is something else that happens when you realize that there's more to that connection than this thing inside of that thing. So energetic sex is like kind of what you were experiencing when you were at my workshop. Right? When your womb and your belly start to feel like sensation and you go, oh, wow. Right? You can start to tune into that and your heart starts to open. Maybe your breasts start to awaken and your mouth relaxes and your body just like, ah. Well, whatever the beginning of that is, that's energetic sexuality.
Well, that worked.
Yeah.
That worked.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And the funny thing is, like, I can feel you from here.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Like, I'm like, oh, yeah, right? Because then we can just drop in at this other level. But that we're, a state, basically a full mega distance away from each other. But yet I can feel, like, just even in that moment, I can feel your body more deeply and more intensely. So that's the beginning of energetic sexuality. And we could take that and begin to circulate that, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, okay, well now my toes are tingling, and oh, now my yoni is starting to awaken, and oh, my heart is starting, and then all this stuff happens, and like that's what energetic sexuality is about. It's a beautiful thing.
Yes, it's yummy.
Yes.
It's very yummy.
Yes.
So how to connect more deeply and intimately with our partners? Like what do you suggest for, I'm talking about the average Joe there that has a normal life, that has a family, that comes home, that couple that goes to work and, that only see each other like to have dinner and a little bit before they go to sleep. Yeah. They have that routine. How can they have more intimacy? How they can connect a little more?
You got to put it in your calendar. You got to make time, because another mythology that we have, at least here in America, is that it's kind of that little bit of like, I just got home and suddenly it's like, bow shika bow meow, the music should come on and like bow shika bow meow, and that's just like, that is just not how it works.
No, it's like, just go home, leave me alone. I need like 10 minutes. I'm going to take a shower. See you later.
Exactly. And that kind of, I think that kind of process it's like understanding that that's just how life is. Again, clarity. Right? It's normal to come home and be exhausted. But like I made a schedule to, for example, for this podcast, like we set a date.
Yes.
Right?
I'm on a date with
Is
you?
it good? Yes, this is our first date. So so that, you know, but that is the thing, like we set a time and a date and a place.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And then we are having this experience.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. With
Now,
the intention, right?
Exactly.
The intention of connect.
Yeah. And that's really the issue. So people just sort of expect sex to somehow be different than that. Like it's just going to automatically, if it's real, it'll just roll off the truck and, you know, you'll come home and that's it. And it's like, just like, oh, slow motion. I flip my hair. Right, and the lighting's perfect and all of that. So,
And then Brazilian music is playing, yeah.
That's right. That's it.
But it's not. Reality is not. It's like some days it's like, and that's the whole thing about feeling like it or not. It's like setting the intention. I want to connect with my partner even when I don't feel like it. That's
it. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure you eat when you don't feel like it sometimes. I'm sure you exercise when you don't feel like it sometimes. I'm sure there are lots and lots of things you do that you don't always feel like doing, but you do them. And that is another reason why happiness is bullshit. Because we think like, I'm happy and everything's going to be like, you know, it's like, no, man. Like sometimes things suck. Like that's just reality. And it just is, right? So I feel like sex is the same thing. Like sex and sex is essential for rebonding and reconnecting in relationship. And if we don't give ourselves that chance and that time, then what do we have?
Good point in there. So what is that you want to share with the world? What is your quest in your life today? Like what is this that you want the most today to share and to be, if you could give something to humanity?
So you're asking what am I most narcissistic about? So let's see. I can be narcissistic about this particular thing, which is that that because I spent so much of my life being misled by people, I'm just really committed to sharing clarity with people.
Beautiful.
And I've been to the mountaintop, so I don't, you know, like people's opinions about where I've been or what my history is. Like I don't care. You don't have to agree with me. You don't have to believe me. I don't care. The reality is I've been where I've been. I have my experience. I know from which I speak, and that's the place I teach from. And that place I teach from is really a lot of, you know, it's really kind of a focus of clarity, because if you can get the bag off your head, you're going to stop running into poles. It's not that you're never going to run into poles. Of course you will occasionally, but it's that you'll do it a lot less if you take the paper bag off your head.
Love it.
Divine Kika is an international Tantra master, author, seminar leader, relationship and sex coach. She will teach you to master your sexuality and self-awareness so you can experience fulfillment while living a life of love, power and passion. She guides you achieve the love life you have always wanted and have the best sex ever. If you want to create a truly happy relationship, sign up for personal coaching sessions today at www.divinekika.com.
How do we connect with you? How do we call you? How do we have your information? How can you get you to coach us?
Okay. Well, so I only take on a really tiny group of coaching students at any given time, but you can always reach out to me at Lawrence, and that's LAWRENCE, Lanoff, LANOFF.com. you can also reach, well, I can't say that on the radio, but you can reach me at the other. I do have another link.
We're gonna put your links into the video, and we're gonna add it on Tantra Lounge Facebook page as well. The ways we can contact you.
Yeah. And if you're somebody who is interested in having a different discussion, because like I'm really into like that passion that I was speaking to you about is really the passion of just seeing clearly, you know, and experiencing things clearly. Like that's really what, you know, that's kind of what I'm looking for. I'm looking for people who put their hand up and are like, yes, that's more what I want. Because otherwise, you know, if you want somebody who has like all the answers, I'm so not that guy, you know?
I see. You have products also for Tantra, for people to initiate in Tantra. I saw some of the products on your website. They look great.
I do. I have Tantra X for men. Mm-hmm. And I am releasing, by the time this podcast comes out, it should be out, which is going to be Tantra XO for women. Tantra XO, like
cool.
Yeah, and that's really, really taking things we've been talking about, but applying them to female sexuality, which is probably on par. As in terms of people being afraid of it, it's probably on par with nuclear power and nuclear weapons. Like that's how afraid of female sexuality people are. So that's what the whole product is about, kind of helping women specifically break free of all of that nonsense that, you know, really keeps you from living your full expression of who you are as life and as, you know,
a powerful being.
Exactly.
I love that you have a program helping men of how to find confidence in themselves, how to actually know how to be the man that woman wants.
Yeah.
I love that you are helping, because I think that it's so unfair that for women, all we have to do is say yes.
Right.
Or smile. Yeah. Right? And then guys come to us. But as a man, they have to work a little harder, and a lot of men are not taught. How do we get there? How do we go to say hello and be accepted? And I love that in a way you are providing men with that education. And I think it's important that we need that. That is just fair that men learn that. And in that process, I know that you are also teaching them how to honor and respect women in a high level.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
And that is not just teaching how to go get women, but really like to be the man that woman desires. It's beautiful. Thank you for doing that.
It is. Thank you. Well, it was my pleasure. And really, that's the funny thing is like, I do take men out. Like, I don't talk about it, but I take men out who really want to learn how to connect with women. Really, a lot of the anger and frustration that men have, and there's a lot of what I would call just hating of women out there in the world in general. And a lot of that comes from what you're talking about. For a woman, she smiles and, you know, just pull the dress down a little bit and, you know, just do those little things. And it's like, oh, hey. Right. And, you know, for a guy, I mean, we spend a lot of our lives just being turned down and not knowing how to bridge that gap. So.
Or even how to dress, how to walk, how to speak. I think most men don't have enough education on how to dress, how to present themselves properly to women, or or to the world, and to introduce themselves with confidence, like that. They hold my hand, and I feel like it's strong. It's not too strong. It's not too soft. It's like just right. And those are the unconscious decisions that we make. No.
Oh, exactly. I mean, that's the thing. But when I take guys out into the world, when I do, that's the one-on-one coaching stuff. It's like they just go, it's like this moment where they go, there's an entire universe out there that existed right in front of my eyes, but I just didn't see it. Mm-hmm. Right? And once you make that shift as a man, once you realize like how abundant the world is with love and humans and awesome people and beautiful women and things to experience and connections to have. And once you come from that framework of just how outstandingly abundant the universe is, it changes everything about life. And I find a lot of that kind of hatred, frustration that a lot of guys can hang on to, and sometimes their whole lives, and bitterness and all that stuff just melts away because you start to see the universe entirely different. And it's like, we do what we do for a number of reasons, and it's far more complicated than what we're taught. And on the other hand, it's far more simple in the sense that when you see clearly, it's like, oh, that's why that's happening. So that's it. It's like this balance between...
Beautiful.
Yeah.
And as a woman, we also need to learn how to say no in a way that is honoring, and say yes when we want to say yes, and not be afraid of saying yes when we want to say yes.
Yeah.
And so we all have a lot to learn.
Yeah,
Thank you for being this beautiful, divine masculine. Like, I really appreciate all that you do in the world, and I look forward to create something amazing with you.
Yes, absolutely. I look forward to seeing you again soon, and thank you so much for having me on the show today.
Yeah, lovely. Talk to you sometime real soon. Tell us your website again.
LawrenceLanoff.com, and if you're a man, go to TantraX.com. If you're a woman, go to TantraXO.com.
Awesome. Thank you.
Prepare to have your mind blown.
Yes. Thank you.
All right,
bye-bye.
so good to see you.
Namaste.
Bye.
Bye.